But in my mind, this is Trump trying to emulate the other strongmen that he so admires.
Oh yeah.
Putin said he
Yeah.
was going to annex Ukraine,
Yeah.
and he has gone to war to do it.
Yeah.
Trump thinks that's a good idea. He
Yeah.
wants to annex Greenland, and he'll
Yeah.
use military force if he needs to do it. Same thing with the
No.
Panama Canal. Welcome to another episode of the Bloomburg Democrat. My name is Sally Taylor. This is my rational and resourceful younger brother, John Daniels. um,
I
we
like
are here.
resourceful.
Yeah, I like resourceful too. I've discovered that about you the more we've spent some time together as adults now. Today, I wanted to talk about a very current event in American politics,
Hmm.
and that is the recent interview, or it wasn't really an interview, it was a press event
Yeah.
that our incoming President Donald Trump had on Tuesday,
Hmm.
where he talked about wanting to take over the Panama Canal again and to
Uh-huh.
annex Greenland and to annex, for all practical purposes, Canada. And,
Hmm.
I think he periodically even talks about Mexico in those terms, although I think he's less interested in Mexico.
Yeah.
And it's caused quite a stir.
Yeah.
It definitely has riled me a bit because I I find it somewhat frightening that he
Hmm.
is saying these things.
Hmm.
So, John, do you think there is any method in this madness? Or do you
Oh,
think this is just another Trump rambling off whatever's at the tip of his tongue in the moment?
well, he definitely like just says whatever happens to cross his mind for a fleeting moment, without much thought. But I think this is kind of what he does to kind of see what ideas might be worth pursuing. Like, if he says some crazy thing and people kind of grab onto that idea and like, yeah, we should do this, I think he takes that as like an indication that that was a good idea, right? And so he's just throwing stuff at the wall and to see what sticks. And when something sticks, he thinks, ah, maybe that's what I need to do. And when it doesn't, then he just forgets about it, and then he probably even just denies ever saying it in the first place. And so I don't know if I take it all that seriously, but still, it's just a crazy thing to say.
Well, it would seem that way. And I try to be very conscious of being in my own algorithm bubble,
Yeah.
so to speak. And so of course I tend to lean left,
Hmm.
obviously. But I really thought that this might even upset some of his own base.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure that it has at all. In
Yeah.
fact, this is a single instance, just a little test I did with what was going on with this topic. I happen to have an antiques booth.
Hmm.
And I interact a lot with other booth owners and the people that come through the store. And there's a gentleman who is a known Trump supporter
Yeah.
who always brings up politics with me, and I always bite my tongue and smile at him and walk away.
Hmm.
Well, this was on the top of my mind, and I thought, oh, here's a thing he's not going to be happy about. Let me ask him what he thinks about this. And oh my goodness, if he wasn't in full support, complete and utter support of
Yeah.
the whole scenario, that, yeah, we need Greenland, and yeah, we're going to take back the Panama Canal. And I just was astonished.
Well,
Needless to say, it was a short conversation. um,
supporters often don't think about their support as much as they ought to, right? Supporters tend to just support. So,
well, I have deep concerns about discernment in general in our nation these days,
yeah.
because for me, and this is the part that confuses me so drastically, as I sit and watch this particular man, not the neighbor, but the coming in president.
Mhm.
And I think, gosh, his flaws are so glaringly obvious,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
glaringly so.
Yeah.
And yet, of the people who voted,
Yeah.
over half supported him. And so now, granted, there was a much reduced number of people who voted in this most recent election. And
Mhm.
so he won by less votes than he lost with on the previous election 4 years before.
Mhm.
So, who knows what would have happened if more people showed up at the polls.
Mhm.
I like to think he wouldn't have won, but who knows? He might have still.
Yeah.
So that leaves me in deep concern about the state of our nation with regard to how informed they are, how discerning they are, and how they feel about these very aggressive statements and policies that he comes up with,
Mhm.
and the damage that it causes. I thought in this case, this gentleman was very anti-war. He always talks about how Trump never takes us to war. Well, but he's threatening war in these
Yeah.
cases. He's threatening against our allies,
Yeah.
sovereign allies.
Yeah.
And so it seems like he really is Teflon Don. Like, it doesn't matter what he says or does.
Uh-huh.
He could shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue and get away with it.
Yeah.
I've also seen this week when he received no punishment for his crimes that he was convicted of, the
Yes.
felonies that he was convicted of.
Yeah. Yeah. That's crazy in my mind. Uh, you just
Well, it makes me think the rule of law is gone in
oh
our nation, or maybe
yeah.
we never had it.
Yeah. I think maybe it's been gone for a very, very, very long time.
Yeah.
There's always been groups of people who are beyond punishment, essentially. And yeah, so there's so many problems. Where do you begin?
And it's like you
S-
laugh or cry, right?
yeah.
I probably cried a little bit too. But I have deep concerns about places like Greenland, who is a
Mm,
population wise a very small country.
yes.
And of course, Trump even sent his son over there this last week to
Yeah.
check the place out. Like he's buying a piece
Right.
of property,
He hasn't even checked
right?
the wallpaper yet.
Right.
Yeah.
Just left a really bad taste in my mouth as well.
Yeah.
But the people of Greenland, they they don't have a military that could, combat an
No.
American invader.
No, of course not. And
In fact, we
well,
have a base there
yeah.
already.
Yeah. We've even got, I think, the underground base that under snow, anyways, under ice base
Yeah,
that we built at one point. That's a
yeah.
interesting thing I read about recently.
I'll have
Um,
to look that one up.
we had like an underground, I think it was a nuclear deterrent, something or other.
Right.
There may be
So
nukes. I don't remember.
to
But
me, the
anyways,
argument that he makes that we must have Greenland for security reasons is
uh,
already a very false statement if we've already got a base there,
yeah, yeah.
you
Well,
know?
Greenland's controlled by Finland. No, sorry, Denmark, right?
Denmark,
Yeah,
Denmark.
Denmark. And so they're considering trying to get their independence,
Right.
right? And so
Right.
even if they get their independence, then they're not going to have any sizable military force to protect themselves if people decide to come along and just take what they have. So I mean, they would have to have some allies. There have to be some defense pacts, and I mean, that's as good as anything these days, right?
Right. Denmark is a
Mm.
founding member of NATO.
Right.
And for Trump to basically say, I might take Greenland by force, is
Yeah.
already
Yeah.
breaking
Well,
that alliance.
yes, he's going to invade NATO.
Right. Right.
So
Which
that's not
seems like
going to
insanity.
work. Yes, that is insanity. He hasn't thought it through. When has he ever thought anything through?
Well, he doesn't. And I agree
No.
with you that because of his deeply narcissistic personality, He comes up with an idea and he's convinced it's the best idea ever.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, yeah, and in his mind, it's all doable. So
Yeah.
that's where I have a little bit of an issue as well. So I had another interaction. This time it was online. I shouldn't do that.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I try to
But
avoid those these days.
it's wise. But somebody we have in common stated that, oh, he just, says stuff to troll people, that he's
Yeah.
just doing it just to rile people up.
Yeah.
And nobody takes him seriously. Nobody thinks he can do these things. And I agree. Nobody really thinks he can. However,
Well, some people I think really do think that he can.
well, some of his supporters think that, yeah,
Supporters are going to
absolutely.
support. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we want.
Yeah.
We're going to become expansionist again, right?
Exactly.
But in my mind, this is Trump trying to emulate the other strongmen that he so admires.
Oh yeah.
Putin said he
Yeah.
was going to annex Ukraine,
Yeah.
and he has gone to war to do it.
Yeah.
Trump thinks that's a good idea. He
Yeah.
wants to annex Greenland, and he'll
Yeah.
use military force if he needs to do it. Same thing with the Panama Canal.
I like to think
He's
that
mad.
there's people somewhere at some level that are going to just say, we're not doing this, and then it won't happen. Surely there's some general who understands that we would be going to war with NATO, and he's just going to say, you know what, we're not going to do this. It doesn't matter what he says. We're just not going to do that.
That is my hope. But as commander in chief, will they? That's my big concern. If he
Just depends
says,
on if they're supporters or not.
yeah, well, even within the system, we know there's a lot of people who, kind of stabilize him, build him up while completely disagreeing and disliking the man. Mitch
Yeah.
McConnell, who I think,
Oh, these people have
sorry,
no
Mr.
character.
McConnell, he was despicable.
Yes.
Mitch McConnell was a despicable, and still is, because he's still a senator, a
Yes.
despicable obstructionist politician.
Yes. Yes. This is true.
But even he has called Trump himself despicable and narcissistic and, all the names under the sun. So even within the Republican Party, it seems they do hate each other, but they still sort of bolster his activity.
They bend the knee, so to speak.
Yeah, well, yes. And how many billionaires have come and now contributed millions of dollars to his inauguration, right? Just to say, oh, we might have said we didn't like you in the past, but we love you now, right? And so here's some money. And of course, they absolutely know that Trump is transactional.
Yeah.
Right? Elon Musk didn't get along with Trump during his first presidency because he was all about getting rid of electric vehicles. Well, that wasn't going to be in Musk's favor.
Yeah.
But now they're buds, supposedly, because they're both transactional human beings.
Right. They're both looking to get something out of the deal.
Right. So what do you see as the likely end result of this? Do you see him taking action on these threats? Or do you think that
I honestly
heads will prevail?
I think nothing's going to happen. He's just going to forget about it and move on to something else. He's just, I don't know, it's just this harebrained idea that entered his head. He's waiting to see if it gets support. And if it does, then it was his idea all along. And if it doesn't, then, well, who's talking about that anyway? That was old and we don't care about that. So I don't really think anything's going to happen. He's just a big talker, He talks and talks and talks, and he doesn't really do anything. I don't.
But do you think he
see too
causes
much
damage in
to
the
be worried about.
process?
So even back when Trump was on The Apprentice, I thought this guy is just a piece of trash. He was despicable then. He's always been despicable. He had Trump steaks. He had a casino that couldn't take enough money from people and went bankrupt. Like, how on earth do you mess up free money? I don't understand. Like, he's never been anybody who you've thought, oh, that's a great person. I can't wait to see him as president. right? It's just been sleazy from the get-go. And I really thought there's no way he was going to be elected president because everybody knows who Donald Trump is, right? But apparently there's just enough people who didn't have an early enough opinion on him that they just listened to the lies and had a hard time seeing that they were lies, and then just, I don't know, the hero worship or what it is about the United States. Everybody's looking for a messiah, right? So
Yeah.
he says that he's an outsider, he's not a Washington insider, and that carries a lot of weight because of, I think, the distaste that people have come to have for the government in general. Like, you just don't trust anything the government says. These are all self-serving people serving themselves. And so he says that he's somebody different, and we want someone different so badly that we just kind of believe him, right? We
Right.
want it to be true. And it's not true. Yes, he's not a Washington insider, but he's the same circle of friends, right?
Right.
He's running around with them prior to his involvement in politics. And so it's just, people have trouble uh, identifying the truth these days, I guess. But why? It's the same thing that's always been. Uh, when the government is cutting education first, right? Educational spending is always the first on the chopping block. And when you cut educational spending, you have people who are less educated and more gullible, right? More susceptible to these types of people who come along, snake oil salesmen.
There was a group of 200 psychologists who kind
Hmm.
of bypassed the Goldwater rule, which says you can't diagnose somebody that you haven't had sit in front of you, basically. And
Right.
they said that they felt like it was their duty to warn the public that
Hmm.
Trump was dangerous, that he had severe personality defects that
Hmm.
were not only dangerous in what he might enact out of vindictiveness or, any of these other reasons he might come after people, but that it was
Hmm.
also contagious, that his personality style could be contagious and actually cause more of that same type of behavior in the public. And
Yeah.
so they, wrote a book even. And they had conferences on this
Hmm.
particular topic. And yet the media would not carry it. They would
Hmm.
not pick it up.
Hmm.
And I'm thinking, I could be wrong, that it was out of fear, not having any, moral objection to, oh, this breaks the Goldwater rule, but
Hmm.
fear over retaliation.
Yeah.
And he plays this handbook over and over and over again. And so even if he doesn't intend to come after Greenland with the military or Panama
Hmm.
or
Hmm.
Canada, um, the bullying usually gets him, if not what he wants, at least concessions,
Right. Right.
right? And so he's like, well, what do I have to lose?
Yeah. No.
Because I'll just say
Well,
I never said that, or I didn't mean that, or
exactly. We need to give him something to lose, right? We need to
right.
be willing to take away things that he holds
Yeah,
dear.
right.
Yeah.
Right. Um, and I don't know how that occurs. How does the public do
Yeah.
that outside of their vote? And in this case, the public just put a very flawed individual
Yeah.
back in office. 40 out of 44 of his cabinet members said,
Yeah.
I will not vote for him. He is not fit for the job.
Yeah.
40
Yeah.
out of 44.
Yeah.
And his people just he's our guy. They
Mhm.
like his machismo. They like his bullying. They like his aggressive
Mm,
stance towards other countries.
yeah.
And they think he's going to make their lives better.
Mhm.
I mean, honestly, I mean, you and I talk often about the fact that people vote for who they think, you know, will give
Help.
them what they're interested
Yeah.
in, right?
Exactly. Help them out. Yeah.
Right. Um, and so
Well, the
that
thing
has
is,
to be the case.
well, he just keeps saying that he's going to, right? That's the thing with Donald
Yeah.
Trump. He'll say anything, especially if he thinks you want to hear it, and he thinks that by saying this, you will then give him what he wants,
Right.
right? He's really not interested in what you want. He's interested in what
No.
he wants, but he's willing to tell you anything you want so that you'll give him what he wants.
Yeah.
That's Donald Trump. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not
Well,
a
and
mystery.
he'll say one thing to his billionaire supporters, and then he'll go
Mhm.
say something entirely opposite to his base,
Of course.
you know?
Because it's
And
not
now, of
about
course,
what they want. It's about what he
right.
wants. It's
Because he
just it's lip
loves electric
service.
vehicles.
Like, I don't know if he does or
Yeah.
not.
Well, but he's now he says, of course I support electric vehicles. I
Yeah.
have to because
Yes.
Musk supports me.
Exactly.
He says out loud what he's doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, really,
Yeah.
even though he'll still go and tell his base, oh, we're going to drill, baby, drill.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, he's
But
not a
then,
good liar. He just does it often,
right.
right?
And he doubles down on it.
He doubles down on it. Yes. Exactly.
So we think these threats are lies, then, John? Or do we think he really wants to do it and he will if he can?
No, I think that's probably what it is. I mean, not that he really, really wants to. Again, he's just kind of he's spitballing. He's shooting things against the wall and sees what sticks. Like he wants to do something big because he wants to be remembered as a great person, I think. He's probably driven by a lot of lack of self-confidence, perhaps, like the good kind, right? Your good self-esteem.
Right.
I don't think he has a whole lot of that. Like a lot of people don't. And I think that drives him to want to appear to be great in the eyes of others, right?
Right.
He doesn't value himself as well as he ought to, and so he looks for evaluation and validation in the eyes of others.
Right.
And
Which is the definition of narcissism that
okay,
at the core, but they're
yeah,
not even necessarily fully aware of their own lack of self esteem because they
yeah,
cover it so completely with the grandiosity that they
right,
start to believe it themselves. I mean, I really
right.
think he believes the vast majority of his lies because he's told them so many times. He's like, oh, yeah, I said
Oh
that
yeah.
100 times. It's true.
Sure, sure, sure. And that's kind of how he tries to make things true is by saying them 100 times.
Over and over again. Yeah.
So yeah, yeah, I'm
Um,
sure he's found some success with that. And so if it works, right, then keep doing
yeah.
it. If it ain't broke,
Uh,
don't fix it.
will the public still support him, though, if he starts killing Panamanians and Greenlanders?
Some certainly will because they don't value the lives of others. They barely even value their own lives. So some people definitely will. Like there's it's no secret that the United States has a lot of people who like war, right? I
Yeah.
mean, we're a warring country for sure.
Well, that's
Um,
where the vast majority of our budget goes. I
right,
mean,
of
we could pay
course.
for a lot of things if we spent less money on the military.
Oh yeah, we would have a population who knows what's up and takes care of themselves. We don't have that.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, we need to stop spending money on stupid things and start spending money on the people. Um, but again, I think education is number one in that. We have to get education back into respectable levels of funding. It's abysmal.
Yeah.
So,
But there's also a really strong anti-intellectualism
oh yeah,
among the uneducated.
yeah,
Like they actually don't trust science anymore. They
yeah.
don't trust, economics. They don't trust the educated anymore either. So not
No, that's
only do they
because
not trust the politicians, they don't trust
the
Anybody that with
educated that
authority.
they've yes, the educated they've come into contact with primarily are very self-serving people, right?
Mm.
Like, how many highly educated people are out there, you know, running the nonprofits and charities and taking care of people who need help? Like, there are definitely some, but
So, yeah.
most of them go into finance or into, technology, and they're looking for their billions. And these are the ones that are more visible, right? These are the ones we read about in the newspaper, we see on TV, and it's all just self-serving people like Musk, right? I mean, when we think of someone highly educated and successful, these are the people that we're thinking about, and they're all self-serving. So we need to have a better culture of respecting those who are doing well with their education, right? The people who are helping others, the people who are advancing the human race with their education. These are the people that we need to be glorifying instead of people who are hoarding the most dollars, right?
So it's
And
one
but
thing
that's
to
a
say that, but how then do you affect that change?
Yeah, how do we do that? It's a hard thing to do. I mean, how do you change a culture? You have to make it look appealing. You have to give up
Right.
what you want for yourself for a greater good, and that's nobody wants to give up what they want. So I don't know. It's going to take a
So,
really big thing to happen in history for people to kind of correct their course, I think.
and
We're
do
in
you
a
think capitalism will get us there?
Oh, I know. I've never really thought that capitalism is going to get us anywhere. It's a money cult. So we have very, very fundamental concepts that we see incorrectly, I think. Like we don't, as a human race, we don't all agree on what's a good society, right? That's why we have various forms of government and different ways of living across the world, and that's fine. But if we don't agree on even very, very basic things like healthcare should be free for everyone, and that equality means everyone is free, not just the people you want to pick and choose. Like, if we can just get these ideas first, I think it will have a lot of knock-on effects. But like we just don't agree as a human race on very, very basic fundamental things. And until we get to the point where we agree on some of these very, very fundamental things, like what's okay, what's freedom, like ethical and moral versus religious, right? Because just being religious is not necessarily being ethical nor moral. There are plenty of pastors of the mega churches who are off doing terrible things, and not just in the United States. I've read plenty of stories online of the same types of people doing the same types of things all over the world.
All over the world, yeah.
So yeah, so I mean, once we can try to figure out, and I think the internet is still going to help with this, but once we can kind of figure out a kind of a universal set of standards that we can kind of all agree on, I think then we'll start to see some real progress. But we're not there yet, and
No,
it's
and
it's going
it
to be a
seems like
very long road.
we keep going backwards too. So
Yeah.
if I didn't have a community that I've sort of built on Facebook that you know, is a heart project for me, I would
Hmm.
probably be off Facebook at this point. But
Yeah.
I'm not willing to let it go for that. But Zuckerberg just bent
Oh
the knee
yes. Yes.
and said, we're going to get rid of fact checking.
Yeah.
And I mean, the propaganda that goes on in that machine was already
Oh yes.
horrible.
Yes.
And now it's going to be 100 times worse.
Yeah.
And again, I'm going to go back to those,
Social media is basically cancer at this point. We need to
yeah.
get away
Well,
from
so,
it.
but you talk about the internet.
Yeah.
So if it's, I mean, social media is just one way that people have
Oh,
now
well,
started to get their news instead of
yes. Well,
from
social
news
media
sources.
is just a few websites, right? And it's a couple apps that just kind of bypass the website thing. But this is not
Right.
the internet. The internet is a vast. source of knowledge and
But
information.
social media is what the vast majority of people are getting their news from. The
Yeah,
vast
well,
majority.
we need to get off of social media, that's for sure. Like, it's just demonstrably bad for you. And
Yeah.
how is
So
that going to happen at this point? I don't even know. But
I
I
don't
think
know. I don't see it happening.
it's perhaps just a generational thing.
Yeah.
Like, the internet is still very young in the life of humanity. So
Yeah. It didn't
yeah,
exist when we were kids.
right, exactly. So it's just probably a generational thing. Like, and the generations of what's hot on the internet are very short generations. So as every 10 years, there's a whole group of people who are just doing something completely different. So I do still think the internet, it's that connectivity among minds. It's eventually we're going to kind of, I think, somehow level out. And I hope it's by pulling people up because the internet is inherently, I think, a kind of an intellectual exercise. You have to use some type of an electronic device, right? It's not like you're drawing in the dirt. So these devices have the tendency to make some people interested in them. Like, how do they work? Right? It sparks curiosity. And maybe it's the hardware itself, maybe it's like the software that it's running on it, or there's a considerable number of people I think that are they see these things and they think, I kind of want to do that too. And so they get pushed into good directions. Learning is always a good direction, right? And so I think the internet itself, simply because of the way that it's the nature of it, very nature of it, it tends to encourage learning. And even though we have made parts of it now where we're really, I mean, we're always trying to find the lowest common denominator so that we can just make the maximum amount of profit. And once you kind of realize you can get away from that stuff, you tend to get away from it. Like, I highly recommend everyone use ad blocking software. The people who are trying to convince you that you have some duty to advertisers, these are the people who don't care about you and they just want your money, right? So get your ad blockers, block all the ads on the internet, and live a much better life. You would be amazed how much content there is on the internet when you're not being bombarded by all the ads. Like, there's a lot of interesting stuff to look at. And so definitely you gotta do that. You gotta extricate yourself from the brainwashing mill that has kind of been created. And I don't want to make this sound like it's some type of conspiracy theory because it's not a conspiracy theory. This is just the nature of it, I think. Like, this is what advertising is. People want to make money, so they advertise, right? And we know that there are advertisements, and you can turn them off, and you will feel better about everything when you're not looking at advertisements nonstop. So just try it
Make you
out.
think about what you don't have that you must need it because
Yeah,
look at all these happy people that are
yeah,
using this particular product.
exactly.
Yeah.
Now, having said this, our channel definitely will not make any money if everybody who's watching it is blocking all the ads.
Right. That's true,
I'm
John.
okay with that. I'm okay with that.
That's okay too. This is another heart project as far as I'm concerned.
Exactly, exactly. I'm not here for the
uh,
money.
right. But yeah, I do understand what you're saying. I have mixed emotions about whether to be on or off some of these platforms because
Yeah.
they do make me miserable sometimes. But I also,
Hmm.
you know, I might have first seen, I don't remember, on Facebook about
Hmm.
what Trump said that day, about
Yes.
Greenland and the Panama Canal. It might have been where I first saw it. And then, of course, when I see something, I went, what? And then I go look it up, right? I go to
Right,
the
right.
news sources, I go to the articles, and I see what,
Hmm.
more content I can dig out of it.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, I mean, I
but
guess it's okay to use as a jumping off point if that's what you're doing. If you're then
Well, but I don't want to stick my head
going
in the
around,
sand
but
either and just go,
yeah,
okay, I'm getting off of all of these, sites and I'm just going to go live my life and never have any idea. what's going on in the political arena, excuse me, in the
It's a pretty
political
good way to
arena.
live.
Well, it may be, except for I do not want my country going to war with Greenland.
Yeah,
And, I care
yeah,
about the people of Greenland and their sovereignty.
right.
And if I
Yes,
don't
I
know
did too.
about it,
Yeah,
right? If I don't
yeah,
know about it, I can't get on a platform like this and say, this is wrong. What are we
yeah,
doing? What are we
yeah,
thinking?
yeah,
Why are we allowing this to happen?
yeah.
And
I
hoping that
understand what you're
somebody else
saying.
may go, "Hmm, maybe she has a point. Why are we allowing this?"
Yeah,
And maybe they
yeah.
won't. Maybe they'll disagree with me completely. I will tell you,
Well, some will.
John,
Yeah.
more often than not, our commenters right now are our siblings.
Yes.
They
Well.
almost always agree with you and disagree with me.
Well, I don't think that there's really anything you've said that is disagreeable. I think,
I think we mostly agree,
yeah, I think we do too.
but I think I ask most of the questions. So,
Well, yes, yes. That's your
um,
role here.
right. And so, but
You're
it
the
makes
host.
it's an
I'm the
assumption that I
co-host.
somehow, have a different viewpoint or something.
No,
But
no. Well, I understand that you don't have a different viewpoint. That's okay.
good. Well,
Everybody
thank
agrees
you
with
for.
logic and reason, right?
Well, I would think. Well, we hope, but obviously
Yeah.
that's not the case.
No, it's not the
Obviously,
case. Yeah.
and like I said, and certainly, a lot of people who are Trump supporters or whatever, they're getting their information from very specific sources,
Mm,
mostly things like Fox News or other right-wing leaning,
mm,
publications.
yeah.
And in their minds, I'm lacking discernment.
Yes. Yes.
you know?
Yes. I understand.
Um, so I always try to keep that in mind. I am still
Yeah.
of the opinion that most of the people in this nation are good, hardworking people that just
Yeah.
want the best for themselves and their families.
Hmm.
But we allow ourselves to be led by people who we wouldn't let take care of our kids.
Yeah.
No, we would not put our
Yeah.
children in their care
I
because
I
they're not trustworthy.
I'm reminded now as I'm listening to you talk, just of the golden rule, right? Is what you're doing negatively impacting others, right? Would do what you want other people to do to you, right? I mean, the golden rule is a wonderful, wonderful thing. If you just keep that in mind, like I wouldn't want someone telling me how to live my life. I shouldn't tell others how to live their life, right? Like that's just a thing. It's
Right.
easy. These what some people do with their lives really has no effect on me at all. And when it does, that's when we start to have problems, right? But when it honestly does not, and it's not something that I'm just imagining, then they
Right.
can do whatever they want. I don't care.
Yeah,
That's
I
fine.
agree. Believe whatever they want, think, but they should not hurt not only
Ex-
me, but they shouldn't hurt other people. So I'm of the
Exactly.
Gandhi, ilk.
Yeah. Yeah.
Be the change you wish to see in the world.
Yeah.
If you want freedom and sovereignty, give freedom and sovereignty to other people. If you want
Exactly.
to be treated kindly, treat everybody kindly.
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
be
That's the
what
way I
you
try to do
expect
it
to
too.
see of others. Yeah,
And that's the golden rule too,
it
right?
is. It
It
is.
is. Yeah.
Exactly. But I'm afraid as a nation, we're not doing that right
No, we're
now.
not doing that. Yeah. We
And
gotta,
it's disturbing.
and everybody has to do it for themselves first. Like, no one's going to save you. You have to save yourself. I believe
Exactly.
this. And so you just have to decide that I'm going to try to do a better job at living the golden rule, for example, or whatever it is that you want to improve. And there are techniques that you can do to change your life, right? Try to make a decision, decide it for yourself. Don't let someone else decide it for you because it's much more important to you if you decide it for yourself and say, I want to do this and I want to change this about who I am. And then you're gonna backslide, you're gonna make mistakes, you're not gonna do it all the time. That's fine. But when you realize that, oops, I wanted to do that differently, you should just then like correct yourself verbally out loud. I said this, I should have said that. I'm sorry. And then you're just this time between making the mistake and then like realizing you made the mistake, it gets shorter and shorter and shorter, and then you stop making the mistake. And this is how we program ourselves, right? on the things that we want to do. When we make our own choices, and this is how I want to live my life, this is one of the steps that you need to do to make sure that you can do this, right? Correct yourself when you can. And that time between the mistake and the realization will just get shorter until you don't make the mistakes anymore. It works with learning languages. It works with just ethical and moral choices, better ways of living. I believe this is a good way to live.
I'm with you completely, John, but let me ask you this.
Hmm.
Do we have a responsibility to call out our leaders on bad behavior? Or do we just
Yes.
vote them out if we can?
Well, you would hopefully do both. I mean, when someone's doing something bad, they need to be made aware of that. Maybe they're not aware, right? Like we have such fundamental differences in the way we value everything in life. I mean, everyone does. So sometimes we don't realize that what we're doing is hurting other people, right? And if people just don't like something that we're doing, then I'm not convinced that that's enough of a reason to change your behavior. But if you're hurting other people and they can demonstrate the damage that's being done, then you should hear about this and you should try to take steps to change, right? So, yes, we need to tell these people, you're hurting us. We're not happy with it. We're going to vote you out. But yes, so we need to make them aware and we need to act on that as well.
Which is the rule of law as well, ideally.
Yes.
Ideally,
Yes. Yeah. The
if
rule of
we
law
can
gets
maintain the rule
it
of law.
gets it often gets involved with people's lives in ways that it doesn't need to, I feel. Right? We have lots of laws that are based on things beyond are you hurting other people that we really don't need to have laws based on, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
Yes. Well, because sometimes those laws become the thing that is hurting other people, right?
exactly. Yeah.
And so we do have to weigh the balance between when are we interjecting ourselves into people's lives in ways we shouldn't be,
Yes,
and when are we actually protecting the public?
exactly. And it should be the protecting of the public is what we need to be focused on, not the intervening in the way people decide to live their lives.
All right. We agree yet again,
Yeah.
John. No
Yeah.
surprise. All right. Well,
Alrighty.
thank you for another fun conversation. I say
Thank you.
fun. I hope I survive the next 4 years without pulling my hair out on this
Yeah.
program.
Okay. I hope so
If
too.
you stick around that long with me, John.
Yeah, sure. Why not?
All right. Well, you have a great rest of your day, and we'll
Thank
see you
you.
guys
You
next
too.
time.
Yeah. See ya.
If you enjoyed this content, please hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications.